All right, let's do a simulated jump at triangle skydiving, which is where CSS used to be, Carolina Sky Sports. So here's the main landing area, and with the simulator we can do the winds any way we want to, which is kind of fun and incredibly useful for instructors. So let's take a moderately windy day, 7 knots parallel to the runway. So we're going to be flying obviously a left-hand traffic pattern towards the target, and winds up higher, usually a little stronger, and that means that we should spot out here somewhere. And I can also do a briefing drawing for students and say, well, probably you want to stay upwind of the target, holding area around here, and the landing pattern. So I want to land on the target. The winds are relatively strong, so I'm going to have a relatively short distance on the final. And since the winds are 7, I'm not going to be really far off the wind line. I'm going to fly a ferry pattern, which I'm also going to put in here a D point, a 1,200 foot mark upwind of the target. And we can talk about how that works and why. A lot of advantages to that under certain circumstances. All right, so let's get it started. With the desktop version, as I'm using now, I can use the keys to steer. So A key is going to be left, and D key is right. And the way it's set up, if I push the key, it only is a quarter brake turn. If I hit the space bar, I pull the toggle all the way down so I can turn faster. So first things first, where's the drop zone? It's down to my left. I'm going to face into the wind for a moment because it is so windy. And I'm looking straight down, look forward, make sure nobody's in front of me. And then as I look straight down, I'm observing how fast am I moving and where I am. Once I figure out that from looking straight down that I'm moving forward, which I can see, then I lift my eyes a little bit and find the point that's not moving up or down. That's where I'm going to. So I can demonstrate that really well with the SkydiVR. So here I can see my exact ground track, which is sliding a little bit to my left. So if I turn a little right, now I'm going straight ahead. And I can project my landing point. So that's the glide ratio of my parachute. That green dot is where I would land if I didn't turn. If I had a little bit of brakes, I'm not going to go quite as far. I add deep brakes. And I go backwards, right? Because the winds are strong up here. So that's cool. Now I'm going to turn back towards the drop zone, get a little bit closer. I'm still at 2,500 feet, so I don't want to go all the way home just yet. And projected landing point is beyond the airport, so I know I've got it made. If I stare at that target, I can see it's dropping. See the target right there? So I can see it's dropping. That means I'm going to make it back with enough room to spare so that I can actually pass the target and do a downwind basin final, right? Because if the target is just frozen, that means that you're not going to be able to do anything but a downwind landing onto the target. And so, of course, if that was the case, coming back, what I could do to extend my glide is add some brakes. Just a little bit of brakes helps a little. The deep brakes helps a lot. Look at that difference. See how far I'm going to go? All right, so at 1,600 feet, I'm going to move off the wind line towards the runway. I'm going to look for traffic. And yeah, there's canopies around in the simulation, which is awesome. Thank you, Ronnie Hewen, for doing that. Makes things a lot more realistic. All right, and since it is windy, I'm going to do my 1,200 foot mark directly upwind of the target. And I'm ferrying. So what that means is I'm not pointed exactly where I'm going with my canopy heading, but I am moving where I want to go exactly. So when I get to 900 feet, here's my altimeter. I'm going to turn left, taking my time. Notice I started to turn a little bit early because it takes time to come around. Now, as I fly downwind, I don't want to creep towards the target. Everybody seems to do that. Make sure you're flying a path that is more or less parallel to your final approach. 600 feet, I'm starting my turn early. And I'm going to let it drift a little to the position that I want to be terms of the sight picture. I'm looking down to my left at the angle, looking at the target, getting close to 300 feet now. Finishing up my turn, and let's see, did that work? I'm going to overshoot a little bit. I can always S-turn a little, or I can add brakes, but if you have traffic, adding brakes might help your accuracy, but can also get you hit from behind, so please don't do this in traffic. But I'm demonstrating what can be done, right? This is a traditional accuracy approach right now. 100 feet off the deck, I need to let my brakes up so that I gain some speed for my flare. 50 feet, 40 feet, and flare, and land. So the other thing that's awesome about the SkydiVR for instructors is if I do this little slide thing, I can move around and see where I was at different altitudes, right? Can you see right here, I've got my altitude. So where was I at 1,200 feet? I was right where I wanted to be, directly upwind of the target. Now, where I wanted to be wasn't perfect, so I didn't plan it quite right. I was just guessing. So that D point should have been about here, not here. I know that's a subtle difference, but then I wouldn't have had to use brakes on final approach to prevent myself from overshooting so far and going down the hill, right? So at 900 feet, I make my turn to downwind. I did a nice parallel path here. Here I creeped it in just a little bit, just a little towards the target. That might have affected my accuracy also. Base leg turning to final at about 300 feet. If I knew I was a little too high, I could always continue on this direction towards the runway a little, look for traffic behind me. If nobody's there, I can cut it back in. So away and back in to get rid of it. But you wouldn't want to go to here and then turn back towards the path of traffic to avoid overshooting, right? That's a dangerous S-turn. But to balloon out your base and then bring it back in can be very useful. And there it is. So here's my little S-turn. We wiggle, wiggle. If I'd done a bigger S-turn, if I added brakes earlier, that would have solved it too. So there we go. So thank you, Ronnie Hewen, for SkydiVR. This is awesome if you're an instructor or drop zone owner. I highly recommend this. It is awesome.